Cases are exploding all over the world, hospitalizations on the increase, but you know what? Doesn't have to be this way. Come on, let me show you what I'm talking about. Hello everyone, Dr. Chris Martinson here, November 12th, 2020. Doesn't have to be this way. Welcome to the show. Let's dive right into this. I gotta tell a pretty big story. So here's what you know, right? Here's what we all know. Cases are exploding all over the world. In the United States, which is what we're seeing here in this particular graph right here. We see 142,856 cases on November 11th. Today's the 12th. I think it's even more cases are going to come in today when all is said and done. And more importantly, coronavirus hospitalizations in the US reach an all-time high, more than 60,000 people in the hospital with COVID. And the worst part of this is we know that people who get COVID, many of them are going to end up, 15, 20% are going to end up with long-term complications. And we're hearing things about what they're calling mental illness, but it's brain fog, it's anxiety, it's some sort of neurological shifting that's happened. Some people have heart issues, kidney issues. We've been talking about this for a long time, that there's long haulers and what happens with COVID. Not a good thing. You don't want the disease. Now, let's keep going with the case count before I get into why it doesn't have to be this way. So this is totally in the wrong direction. This is worldwide, looking at the moving 7-day averages for cases. Again, and by the way, I put cases in quotes here because these aren't actually cases, these are detected infections. There's a whole thing around this now where, because we're using these PCR tests, because of the cycle thresholds, the number of times you have to cycle this before you detect the signal in the sample, anything above 35, according to Fauci, is an irrelevant signal. You're just picking up dead fragments of virus particles, or it's a false positive, or there's really not enough viral load there to be infective or infectious. All right. So we don't actually know how many of these 140 plus thousand cases that are here are actually above or below that cycle threshold of 35. Actually, I think 33 is a different level that we pointed to before. So don't know much about that. And same thing for this worldwide. A lot of these cases are showing up all over the place, but many of them in the northern hemisphere. So second wave kind of stuff is what it looks like. There's some new testing going on. Little unclear. So let's turn now to a case example, and this would be Sweden, right? Everybody's favorite whipping boy or poster child for how to do things right, depending on your point of view. But this is incontrovertible, and this talks about deaths. November 11th, daily deaths in Sweden, a nation of more than 10 million people, 3. Now, how can this be? How can, if you looked at Sweden's case count exploding, way above what they were reporting back in March and April. Of course, testing might not have been so similar back then to now. Many more tests being run today, but even with that, you would think that we would be seeing a really sharp increase in the number of cases, and we're not seeing, in deaths, we're not seeing that. So why not? Well, maybe this is why. I talked about this in the last episode. Sweden, here in 2015, we're talking about how they were expanding their mandatory vitamin D fortification. So this is in foods. Let me get my drawing tool out here real quick because some important stuff to look at here. The new proposal would see the fat content of the already included skimmed and semi-skimmed milk increase to cover 3% milk fat, as well as other products such as lactose-free alternatives like rice and oat milk, oil, butter, sour milk. So they're going to start putting stuff in there. What are they putting in there? Currently, the milk is fortified at between 3.85 and 5 micrograms per liter, and this could increase to 10 micrograms per liter. And for cooking oil, 20 micrograms per 100 grams. Lots of vitamin D. Already in there, but they increased it, right? So what does that mean? Well, let's get to this. On November 10th, in the November 10th show, I put this up. It's about damn time, right? The UK is going to be delivering millions of vulnerable people vitamin D allotments, right, to help protect them from COVID. That's a good thing. And why? Because vitamin D is very strongly associated with both the lack of getting COVID in the first place, but also decreasing the severity of the symptoms. So it does two things at once. And here's a really cool chart I ran across on Twitter. What this person did was they took the solar intensity, here it is increasing across time, and these would be the months of the year from January on through to, looks like September 30th there. So you can see that the sun increases and goes like this, but look at the total number of cases across Europe in that same amount of time. It's a mirrored graph. The conclusion would be there's something about sunlight. Same thing that they found out in 1918 with the Spanish flu, right? That there is some relationship between the sun and the spread of the disease. So it could be sun, it could be temperature, all that, but really the operative theory here is that it's vitamin D. That because the sun is out and people are out and about, that they are getting exposure to sun, which creates natural vitamin D through the skin. So this is pretty compelling data right here, and it mirrors all the other data that we're seeing about vitamin D. So it kind of says, well, if Sweden's reporting very, very low numbers of deaths relative to other countries, and they've got this enhanced vitamin D fortification, we know that the sun is important, hey, this could all work. So this is a really good idea here that the UK is talking about, right? You want to deliver vitamin D to all these vulnerable people. Sounds good, right? All right, little context for this though. And this is going to help you decide how much of a vitamin D dose you would want to get yourself if you wanted to supplement yourself. So this comes to us from 2015. It's a big paper which was actually looking at something. It was looking at the rate of bone loss if in relation to vitamin D. But they gave us some really important data comes out of this paper. And its title here is Changing Incidence of Serum 25-hydroxyvitamin D Values Above 50 nanograms per mil. That's a good dose level you would want circulating in your bloodstream, a good level. So they looked at a 10-year population-based study. They found a lot of awesome things, really cool paper. But the part I want us to look at here today says that they found that having serum concentrations between 51 and 218 nanograms per mil did not significantly alter serum calcium values. So this is something you've heard people say, which is, oh, you don't want to overdose on vitamin D. Well, by the time you get up to 218 nanograms per mil, that is a lot. You would have to be taking a lot. I don't even know how much you'd have to take, probably 30, 40,000 units a day for a long time. That'd be a guess, and I'll tell you how I got to that guess in just a second because the data's in here. As well, they also showed no relationship of serum calcium with 25 OHD concentrations. Even at 25 OHD values of 200 to 700 nanograms per mil, that's even more, that's a lot. So they're not noting anything here in terms of toxicity around bones, calcium loss, all that other stuff. So that's good news. Could be other effects, but at least not anything that they found there with relation to that. So they say here, our results agree with previous studies demonstrating that clinical vitamin D toxicity is rare, even with serum 25 OHD concentrations of over 100 nanograms per mil. It is debatable how these findings apply to the most recent guidelines on vitamin D supplementation, so they're still trying to get this worked out. The Endocrine Society guidelines, which target populations at risk of vitamin D deficiency. Now, these would be people, old folks in old folks' homes. Age is a decreasing factor for vitamin D. People with dark skin. These would all be people at risk of vitamin D deficiency. They recommend a daily vitamin D intake of 10,000 units a day as the upper limit corresponding to a concentration of about 100 micrograms per ml. Nanograms, sorry, not micrograms, 100 nanograms per mil. All right. They said here, using a cautious approach to the evidence, the committee recommended an upper limit of about 4,000 units per day, which would correspond to a serum concentration of vitamin D of around 50 nanograms per mil. All right, good stuff there. I had to take you through that because we needed to know the concentration amounts to make this next point. But let's just say that if you want to have a healthy dose of around 50 nanograms per ml, which would be really highly correlated with a lower incidence of COVID and fewer symptoms, then you would want that 50 nanograms per ml. Oh dear. Oops. The UK is proposing, when they said they're going to ship out doses to people, they're running with 400 units. That's what they're going to deliver as a daily dose, 400 units. This is a really tiny amount here. And Robin Whittle noted this on Twitter. And so if you take 400 units, it's just not enough. So they've been petitioned here by a group that wrote an open letter to the UK Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, the second one this year. There's a group out there saying, please, can we do the right thing here? They say, we are aware that you are under pressure to recommend vitamin D and initiate trials to evaluate its protective effects. We are also aware that the government recommendation is restricted to delivering just 10 micrograms or 400 units of vitamin D. They are the lowest recommendations of any government in relation to COVID-19. Italy, by comparison, is recommending 50 micrograms or 2,000 units. This is just not enough, because if you really wanted to get to 50 nanograms a mil, which is the dose, somewhere above 40 for sure, but 50 is associated with really good outcomes, and you need 4,000 units to get that 50 nanograms concentration, but the UK is restricting themselves to delivering 400. That is a 10-fold reduction. That's 90% less than what you would actually want to be delivering. Let's take a future view of that. Let's time travel to the future and take a look at what we think the future headline is going to look like. Come on, let's go take a look at that.
Hello everyone, and good evening. This is Hannibal Spotsbury reporting from the future. Indeed it is. Today is November 12th, 2021, and in a disappointing turn of events, the National Health Service says that vitamin D does not work after all. Despite high hopes, our national program of delivering vitamin D to our most vulnerable, no differences in outcomes were noted after supplying daily doses for a full year. The program has been terminated, sending the stock price of excuse me, hang on. What's that? No, I can't say that. Is there any way to support? No. My pension. Oh, okay. Right. It has been brought to my attention that all vitamin D use is now to be discouraged per order of the NHS. Further, sunlight has now been classified as a level 1 carcinogen, meaning it has no other identified mitigating value to personal health or society at large, apparently. All people are hereby ordered to remain in their homes to await their second rounds of vaccines. This is Hannibal Spotsbury signing off. May you all have a very good evening.
Oh yeah, well, hey, just having a little bit of fun with that. But I do think that that's exactly what's going to happen when we look at this in the future. So vitamin D, really important. Here's your vitamin D data. You could just take a screen cap of this. This is just so you understand what it is, because sometimes they talk about it in micrograms and sometimes it's in units. How do we make sense of that? So 10 micrograms is 400 units. So 100 micrograms would be 4,000 units. That's kind of the dose people are looking at here. You could either take 4 1,000 unit pills or a single 5,000 unit pill, call it a day. 5,000 units is basically going to give you around 50 nanograms a mil for a standard 50 kilogram person. So it's somewhere between 4 and 5,000. By the way, no toxicity noted at 100 nanograms a mil, 200 nanograms a mil, and on and on and on and up. So not saying there can't be side effects, but the levels that are being promoted here at 50 nanograms a mil as a starting point, that's a very, very safe dose range to be operating in. All right, hopefully this has put the vitamin D stuff to bed. Let's move on. The drug which shall not be named, Dosage. We got some more data on this one. So you know what else is 90% effective compared to the vaccine that was just talked about for Pfizer was 90% effective according to these early preliminary non-peer-reviewed press release studies, which said that there was 90% effective in blocking people developing COVID symptoms, I think is how that's interpreted. There's some questioning now about how they actually are comparing the controls against the other group. But at any rate, you know what else is 90% effective at blocking people catching the virus and then the disease? Dosage. All right, let's look at it here. This stuff, Dosage, as pre-exposure prophylaxis against COVID-19 in healthcare workers, this is a single center experience. This comes to us from India. India, which doesn't have the luxury of doing things wrong, which doesn't have the luxury of waiting for big vaccines and expensive pharma things to come along. We're finding some of our best results coming out of other countries which are doing great research. but they're not hamstrung by this whole idea that they have to wait for the latest pharma thing to come along. So what was here? They conducted a retrospective study, cohort study, in a mixed tertiary care facility. They were looking at the incidence and clinical profile of COVID-19 in healthcare workers between April of 2020 and June of 2020 who were advised pre-exposure prophylaxis with Dwizabin at the start of the pandemic. So details of the Dwizabin usage were collected using an online questionnaire form. The clinical profile, the treatment, and outcome of COVID-19 positive healthcare workers were also studied. All right, so they gave these people a choice. They said, you've been exposed or you're likely to be exposed. Take the Dwizabin and see what happens. All right, the results. They included 604 healthcare workers, of which 491 had taken adequate Dwizabin prophylaxis, while 113 did not take adequate Dwizabin. So 443 had high-risk COVID-19 exposure, and 32 healthcare workers, or 5.1% of the total, were COVID-19 positive. So this is the whole blob of them. There were 10 COVID-19 cases, just 2.1% among healthcare workers taking Dwizabin, while there were 22 cases occurred in the not compliant Dwizabin healthcare workers. So 2% to 19.4%. So basically 10 to 1, a 90% reduction in people who ended up with COVID-19 because they were on Dwizabin prophylaxis. So that's what they found here. And by the way, a relative risk of 0.1046. So that means only 10% of the risk of catching COVID-19 if you take this cheap, effective drug when you're in a high-risk situation. So Dwizabin, it works. It's as effective as this miracle vaccine we're all waiting on. All right, look at the p-value, 0.0001. Very, very highly significant. You know what else is highly significant? A big cohort retrospective study of Dwizabin, looking at all the different clinical trials that have been out there, including the awful ones, the recovery and all this and that. So some of these trials, this is right here with a odds ratio of 1. So anything on this side over here, on the right side of this chart, that's going to be stuff where because you took Dwizabin, your outcome was worse. If it ever falls to the other side, to the left, it means that taking the Dwizabin improved things. When you add up across all these studies, all the methodologies, all the different ways they did it, including giving it too late and giving it on time and all of that other stuff, I know this is going to be hard to read, but check this number out. What is the p-value of all these studies up here collectively summed? The p-value of this, meaning what's the chance of this happening by chance, that all these numbers fell to the left of that line, of that odds ratio of 1. It's 0.000000. Actually, with 6 decimal points of precision, you can't find a number in there. 0. P-value 0. Like, this is statistically impossible to have happened by chance. Same thing for the big data studies. Same thing. Look, they're all mostly falling to this side of the line, just a few falling kind of on the line or to the right. Again, p-value 0.0000. So Dwizabin actually works. And by the way, I bet if you cherry picked a little, by which I mean you only picked the studies where they gave it early in the prophylaxis cycle or in the infection cycle, the data would be even stronger. But it's already strong enough. It actually works. India knows that, and they're busy putting out things like this paper right here. All right, so the SARS-2 response list, what would you do? A, don't get it. You stay away from groups, especially unmasked people. Why? Well, because of that low inoculum. If you're around people who have it, you want to make sure you get that low starting inoculum. But keep your immune system topped up. You want your vitamin D, you want your vitamin C, zinc, quercetin to help the zinc get into the cells, selenium, elderberry, B-complex vitamins, all that. And then if you're in a high-risk situation, HCQ is prophylaxis, meaning you take it before you've been exposed. Seems to confer pretty strong benefits, at least to Indian healthcare workers. Might work for other people too. If you do think you're like really positive, somebody coughed right in your face and they've got it, or you got the early symptom onset, my preferred thing is ivermectin, 200 micrograms per kilograms, days 1 and 2, based on the Math Plus protocol. Doxycycline, 100 mgs 2 times a day for 5 days, plus zinc. As well, keep those antioxidants rolling along. That would be, and aspirin, according to the Math Plus protocol, because that can help with that clotting, which may be leading to the brain fog and the kidney issues and stuff like that. All right. If stronger symptoms happen, you jump straight to the Math Plus protocol. If critical, obviously you're in a hospital and you're getting hopefully the best care money can buy and is available. This is the Math Plus protocol right here. Comes from the Eastern Virginia Medical System, EVMS. Great stuff. I'm putting it up here again because this is what I would do. If I get sick, I'd be following this protocol right here. But again, the prophylaxis is right here as well. Melatonin, I forgot to put that on the other side, but melatonin is part of that. But definitely once you become symptomatic, melatonin actually jumps way up there. There it is again. So that's what that is, and this is what my personal immune booster set would look like. I wouldn't be taking quite that much melatonin. 12 mgs is quite a bit. You would want to work your way up, but if I was sick and symptomatic, I'd be taking quite a bit of that stuff. Again, we covered that in earlier episodes. It's ridiculously safe. So everything on here actually is ridiculously safe. Super, super wide safety margins. So the question becomes, why not? Why would you not try this stuff? And by the way, there's a reason I put the 5,000 units on the D3 on there, because I think that's a very strong supportive statement to say, you kind of want to have about that much vitamin D rolling into your body on a daily basis for somebody of my size. So that's it. That's all I have for you today. Hope you had fun. Remember, if you liked this, please hit the like button. It helps other people find this. If you found it useful, your clicking the like button helps other people who might also find it useful. Who knows, it may even save a life. We have lots of emails from people claiming that this information has helped save lives. So with that, have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Be well, everybody.